And what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Designated Players, an MLS podcast. We're back with what went wrong, and on this edition, we're chatting Sporting KC, who, for the first time in what feels like a millennium, they're playing meaningful games without Peter Vermees somewhere on the premises. I mean, allegedly, we don't know if he's hiding up in the stands or something, but he's not there coaching the team. So after a rough run of 2025, they're now headed into an off season where a rebuild's probably going to be necessary, and if they want to be competitive. And we're gonna chat about how we got to this point, but we couldn't do it alone, as we brought back Chad to talk again. Chad, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Andrew. Thanks for having me, bud.
Yeah, man, always a pleasure. We love chatting with you. Always a great guest, and you bring along some great scarves too. So I want to just jump right into it because I'm really excited to see what you pulled today.
Well, I gotta feel like this one might be a little disappointing because my last two I thought were pretty clever and pretty fun. And it's been kind of a depressing year here in Kansas City. Back-to-back playoff misses, like 3 out of 4 years. It's terrible. It's really awful. So I decided to go with the good Kansas City soccer team, the Kansas City Current.
Yes.
So I'm rocking the Current here, and that way, something good's happening. Only the on the way to potentially the best record in NWSL history. They clinched. Oh, I can't speak English. They clinched the Supporter Shield before any team had ever done it, or I'm sorry, the NWSL Shield. That's my MLS bias talking right there.
Hey,
So got to see them lift that trophy. Ironically, against Seattle, they broke their record for the pace of getting it quickly. So as much as I'm supposed to be here talking about Sporting Kansas City, got to give some love to the Current here.
love it, love it. Yeah, it's one of the next ventures I think for me is in there because like when I'm back in New York, obviously Gotham were there, and down where I'm at now, I don't quite have one relatively close, but it might be something just to jump in and get back to supporting Gotham properly again because I watched him for a little bit and got excited, and then once I moved away, it kind of became back of the burner, if you will. I don't know if I showed this one off when you were on last time. I don't know if it was
Ooh, I don't
here.
think you had a Kansas City
No, I
one when I
couldn't
was here
remember.
last
So I
time.
had it on order when we chatted the last time, and I couldn't remember if it got in or not. It is easily top five. I mean,
Yeah.
oh, when the whiz. I mean, the design is beautiful. The fabric is great. I'm always good on like a heavy winter scarf versus a summer scarf. It is. I mean, without a doubt, one of the best that I've got so far.
Yeah, that's really sharp. I was just telling you before we went live, I'm out of room. They're overlapping each other, so I'm trying not to buy too many, but I don't have a ton of Wiz or Wizards ones, so that's one I don't own, but I feel like I need it now. Now I'm
Oh yeah,
motivated. Hopefully
yeah. I
they'll
would.
sell it at the warehouse sale this winter because times are down, so they can give it to us at a discount.
Yes, yes, and I would absolutely recommend it because it is absolute quality. So, unfortunately, we're here to talk about things that are not so quality, and that is Sporting KC's 2025 season. I want to throw it over to you first and just say what is kind of like reason 1A that this team missed the playoffs this year? What happened?
Gosh, I mean, how do we just pick one thing? It's such a combination of other things. I guess I have to say maybe the disruption of the season. I know you kind of led off with Peter Vermees, by the way. Have not seen him sneaking around the stadium at all. I've been at almost every single home game this year, besides when I'm traveling or at the Current. Sometimes they overlap. And the one time I saw Vermees pop up, he was at some soccer conference up in Michigan. But as much as his time had come and he probably should have left, he probably should not have left 6 games into the season. It's like he barely got a chance to work with Dejan Joveljic and Manu Garcia, the new designated players on the team. I'd have liked to see, could he fix it now that he had money? He went years and years and years without having money. So I'm going to say the 1A of, I got B, C, D, and E if you need those too. But 1A, I'm going to say the weird timing of firing Peter Vermees. Either do it before the season, so whoever has a chance to build, or let him have a shot to go through the season at least a little further to see if he could have pulled them out of the spiral and implemented the plan. Because I don't know if I told you this the last time. I think last time I was here, I told you they had gone 5 years basically without spending any money on their roster, or anytime they wanted to spend, they had to go to ownership and specifically ask for permission for every single transaction, which is no way to run a team.
No, no, and we were talking about that when he got released as well. It was like if you were gonna do it, you do it either before you get the designated players in, or you do it after he's got half a season, right? But 6 games doesn't make sense. That's just it blew our mind because we were like, we understood why, but the timing
Of
just was
course.
so confusing. It just didn't make sense. I completely agree with you.
Yeah, why let him get these DPs if you're not going to let him implement his plan? And does whoever the new coach is want these DPs? Although I think Dayon has made his case that everybody
Yeah.
wants Dayon probably.
No, 100%. And well, that's a big thing, right? It's like, okay, now you have a whole roster that you basically handpicked for this guy, and now you have to replace it, and somebody could just be like, don't really like these, or you could drive away a coach that has a really good pedigree or whatever, because like, oh, I don't really like the roster build, right? I would have liked it in a different scenario for her to come over. Like the timing put you guys behind the eight ball, 100%.
Yep.
The I want to draw ourselves back because I got a couple as well, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on them. But one of the it draws back to our conversation at the beginning of the year because I very distinctly remember us talking about the defensive line and the goalkeeper. It was like one of our big question marks of this team because when we talked, they had three center backs on roster. One of them was 16 years old, and we weren't sure about John Polskamp being the number one goalkeeper. And we had sat there and you know we were both sitting here because I think again Connor not here again. I think he's avoiding these because he missed them and he doesn't want to face the music if you will. But you know Connor we mentioned was very anti Pulskamp. You and I were like I think he can do it. Well, let's fast forward to today. SKC currently the worst defensive record in the league at time of recording. Pulskamp has the second worst PSXG plus minus of all 65 goalkeepers that have played a game this year. He is second worst. I believe Jonathan Bond is only the only other one who is worse. And their center backs have not gotten better. They really didn't improve on those in the midwinter. I know they brought in Montez, I believe, on loan. Um, but that's it. And it's pretty easy to understand that you have to score more goals in this league or in this game than you concede to win games. Right? Very very shocking. I know, but when
Yeah,
you
weird
look at
concept.
yeah, I know it's crazy, but when you look at SKC, they did half of that. They scored. They have more goals than
Yeah.
three of nine playoff teams in the West right now. But when you concede nearly 70 before the season's even up, that's not a recipe for success, right? And by the way, and maybe I'll catch some flack for this. If you give up three goals in the next two matches or more, you're in the record books for a top 10 worst defensive team of all time. I just looked that up before I got
Wow.
in here, which is shocking. But it's not
That
great
is
company to
shocking.
be in. You know, it's not great.
Yeah, I will say you would think that Pools Camp was terrible based on these numbers, right? I think they've given up the most goals they have in team history. It's a tie right now. So if they give up any in the next two games, which seems likely because they have, I believe, one shutout, no, two shutouts all year off the top of my head. That weird LA Galaxy game where they didn't take any shots but somehow won the game, and then that draw, inexplicable draw in San Diego against San Diego, who happens to be one of the better teams in the league. But you would think Pools Camp was awful. And I guess that stat doesn't really paint the picture that I'm going to try to paint for you, but I'm going to tell you it's all the failings ahead of him. I can't tell you how many balls that guy stopped. I actually just voted in their like votes for save of the year, goal of the year, all that
Mhm.
stuff, like our media vote we got this week. And but he had so many fantastic saves. But the problem is when you are just endlessly being peppered with wide open people in front of you, of course some of them are going to go in the net. Now, I don't know if he is the answer long term. He's still incredibly young. He's only 24 years old. He's the oldest goalkeeper on the roster too, which is a weird decision in and of itself. I got to think they're going to add a veteran to push him because he played every minute of every game. He never left. He never didn't start. Yeah, all the non league competitions. He was in those as well. They were only in Champions Cup. So, and I thought he did better than the numbers show. Maybe I'm still delusional. I guess I'd like to know from you, since you were kind of on my train, that he's not going to be too bad. What do you think? Is he terrible?
I don't know if I can judge anybody from a back line of three center backs because I'll be frank, I didn't watch a lot of SKC this year. They usually overlap kickoff with Red Bull at the end, and by the time Red Bull
Yeah,
was done playing, I was so frustrated I just turned the TV off. But the thing about Polskan, I agree with you, is he's still got time to figure it out. I do think he needs some sort of guidance, right? I think having Tim Melia there was a good start for him, but now he might need just a little bit more help, right? He might need somebody else to just say, hey, here are the little things to do as a pro to get through this, right? Sounds like Brad Guzan's working his way out of Atlanta. If you want somebody like that,
no,
I don't
thank you.
know.
No, thank
Yeah,
you.
I wouldn't
hard,
either.
hard pass.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. But I don't think that you can judge anybody off of one bad season, especially, the PSXG stat is a decent tell of kind of what you can do, but it's also impactful on um, how many chances are gone at you because it's a total, it's not an average. So how many chances come up against you, how many shots you need to save, right? Like that all skews into it as well. So I think it's probably worse than he lets on, but I'm personally not too worried. Now, if he's at the bottom of this ranking next year, like halfway through the year, maybe it's time to have another conversation. But yeah, right now I'd give him this one off because they're still trying to figure out who they are, what their schemes look like, and then he can fit into that.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. And you mentioned the center backs. The center backs are a mess, but it's not just them, right? There's basically no fullbacks on this team. Everybody'd probably be better suited to play as a wing back, but they've only done that in the second half of a couple of games this year where they went to a back three. The midfield's a mess. The ball's just going right through the midfield. Defense starts at the front, as much as some forwards don't believe that, and you can tell that in their effort at times. But it's when you're running a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1 or whatever variation they were in. They were doing some 4-4-2s a lot this year too. They're trying all kinds of stuff. Carries it back and was just throwing whatever he could at the wall. Uh, it was a mess. It's just like nobody was defending. Dejan cannot defend. That's fine. He can be up in the front doing his thing, poaching 18 goals in a season, but everybody else needs to help. And there was a lack of help for poor John out there. There was a run this season where he was just saving what felt like everything. And Kerry Zavagnin was talking about how I don't even want to talk to him. Like he's doing so good. I don't want to even mess with it. Like, let's just let him do his thing. And then they went on a kind of a bad run for a while. But again, I think a lot of it was out of his control. It wasn't perfect. No 24-year-old goalkeeper is probably going to be perfect unless you're just elite. And he's probably not that, but I still think he could be a quite a solid, if not above average MLS starter. But we'll see if I'm proven to be entirely wrong based on, the whole defense theoretically being rebuilt this offseason in front of him.
Yeah. Well, and there's this thing too, and it may not be in Kansas City where he turns into that player, right? You look at some of these goalkeepers who were consistently reserve goalkeepers, couldn't get time. People would sign everybody and their brother before playing this guy. Then they go over to another team and they're a serviceable, really good starter, right? So as much as it might stink, but it may just mean he needs a change of scenery. Now, I still think that this is a good spot for him, right? Like SKC and goalkeepers go hand in hand, right? You got, I mean, the list goes on with how many great ones you've had. He just needs time to, I think, settle and realize, okay, I am the number one. I can do this now. I don't have to watch Tim do this for, the next 5 years. It's my turn. Let me step up and do it, right?
I agree. I'd like to
Yeah.
see more of it. I pulled up another stat to kind of back him up a little bit. Now, this isn't elite numbers or anything, but in his post shot expected goals against shots on target, he's in the 68th percentile. So again, that's not
Yeah.
elite, but it's above average. So it could be worse. I just think he was hung out to dry so many times this year where it's just he literally was all alone with attackers just numerous times, guys stepping out of position, not being where they're supposed to be. There is a possibility that literally every center back could be gone except for 17-year-old Ian James, who you referenced earlier. He's the only one on a guaranteed contract for next year. I think we'll probably see Jansen Miller back. I don't know if you got a chance to see him at all. He's pretty fun. He's a rookie. He was a draft pick, at times fantastic and at times horrific. But I think they'll be at worst. That kid's probably like third on the depth chart next year, depending on who they sign, and hopefully he'll take some steps forward as well. And they'll add a lot of pieces and some legitimate fullbacks. I think will go a long way as well.
Yeah, awesome. Well, why don't we then move on from this, and why don't you give me a 1B then? I know you said you had a good list. Give me 1B.
Oh my gosh. So people will be so mad that I made Peter the 1A too, because they're going to be like, what's this guy? I'm like, no, trust me. He shouldn't have been here, but the way they did it made no sense.
Right.
1B, I'm going to go back to the spending, the spending. And this is actually a blame on Vermees or Brian Bliss, who used to be the technical director and got fired at some point before this year. They spent not only did they not spend because they weren't spending transfer fees, they're getting permission from ownership to go sign players, et cetera, but when they did spend, they did a really bad job and they had a lot of really, really bad contracts. You mentioned center backs. They had two guys, Joaquin Fernandez making over $1 million was horrific, can never stay healthy. When he was on the field, he was either he could be the best center back of a very, very bad group of center backs, or he'd be somehow worse than everybody, which is like, how is this possible? But then mostly he was just hurt. Danny Rosero didn't even make it through the year. He was playing so bad. They just released him so he could maybe find a job elsewhere. He's probably the second highest paid guy. So just bad spending there. Again, I mentioned the fullbacks. We have multiple fullbacks approaching $1 million and they're all bad. Like Kyrie Shelton, 750K, and not even a fullback, but they converted him to that at some
Yeah.
point. Tim Leibold was just like 900 something thousand dollars to be the backup left back. He wasn't even a starter most of the time. So they probably have like $3 million wrapped up in their fullbacks, and none of them are good at playing fullback. You got I want to say, third or fourth highest paid player on the team is Nemanja Radja. Hurt a lot, hardly played. When he did play, he played out of position. He's supposed to be that pivotal number 6, single pivot, D mid, and barely played this year. He went from being like really pretty solid in his first season to just worse and worse and worse all the way through the time. Terrible money spent there. I mean, you could argue a lot of guys have some really bad contracts, but those are the ones that are really leaping out at me, because you spend your money badly on all those TAM players, that's going to come back to bite. You got the DPs right. But if we get the TAM guys right around them, that could do a lot to fix this team.
Well, and it's so funny you mentioned that because it used to be for the longest time you have to hit on your DPs, right? If you don't hit on your DPs, you're not going to be successful, and that's still true. But now it's just not good enough to just hit on your DPs. You have to fill it out. The next 5 spots on your roster, your 10 players, need to be 4 out of 5, 3 out of 5 hits. If you are carrying 5 10 players who are not doing it for you, your entire team is done because everybody else has 5 10 players that are outplaying you all over the pitch, right? It's such an interesting way to see how the league itself has developed from, yeah, if you got one designated player, you're better than every other team in the league, right? David Beckham, Thierry Henry, you're going to walk the league. Don't worry about it. To now, you can have 3 really solid DPs, and you have 3 U22s, and if they don't play well, you're done. Right. Or you've got 5 10 players, and if only one of them is performing for you, you're done. It's such an interesting improvement in the league.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm going to tie into what you said, right? Your bad spending. You have a lot of players, a lot of money tied up in players who aren't very good. And that turns into a lot of losses. And I know it sounds self-explanatory, right? You missed the playoffs. Why? Because you lost games, right? But it's not just that they lost games. They didn't find ways to tie games, right? They lead the league this year with 19 losses. 19. That's an absurd number. And what it was is not just the 19, but it's who they lost to, right? So if you look at the bottom half, so I think it was from above Portland, so Austin and up. You've got 4 points against St. Louis. You got 3 points against Houston out of 3 because you only played, Houston's your decision day. You've got a point against RSL. You didn't beat Dallas, but you got 3 points out of San Jose. You got all 6 points off of San Diego, or I'm sorry, Colorado, and that's great.
I was going to say that was news to me.
Yeah, no, I wish. But then you look on the other side of it, right? You look at the teams in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1 point against San Diego. You mentioned the crazy draw. 0 points against Vancouver, 1 point against Minnesota, 0 against LAFC, 0 against Seattle, 0 against Austin, 0 against Portland. Like you struggled to get results against those top teams, and it's not necessarily that you need to win those. Now it would be nice, of course, but if you are a team that isn't at that level, being able to pick points off of them is important, right? And that's something that I noted was you were just so night and day when it came to top 7 versus bottom 7. So I found that as something that was really really eye opening to me.
Yeah, if I could speak to that too, I
Yeah.
will tell you. So Kerry Zavagnin, he took over as the interim coach. He's a longtime assistant. He actually been at the team longer than Peter Vermees because he was an assistant on the staff that Vermees fired, and then Vermees put himself in as the interim manager and eventually made himself the manager. But Kerry Zavagnin been there this whole time. He told us after a game, he was talking about how they're trying to be enjoyable to watch. Things weren't going well, but they're trying to be enjoyable to watch. And I think you said you didn't get to watch a lot of games. There were a lot of fun games where they fell behind early, not the fun part, but they fought back and they didn't quit and they kept coming back in these games. But a lot of those games turned into draws that you should have won, or you got almost came all the way back and you lost to mediocre to bad teams, and then you left a lot of points on the table. You mentioned we got a lot of points off the bad teams, but they got very few points overall, so they didn't get a bunch of points to go that far. But I think that kind of compounds itself when you don't take advantage of getting wins against the poor teams at home. Or like you said, Dallas. Like, how do we not get more off of Dallas? Like, they're not a very good team, but they didn't capitalize on that moment. You add that in, if you could take advantage of the top teams, like you mentioned, then you could make up a few more points. But it was, I think, a few draws and losses against bad teams that really sting the most. Because if you beat all the bad teams, you're a fringe playoff team right there, because so many dang teams get into the playoffs, and they didn't do a good job of that. And that goes to Kerry. He was fun. I don't think he's going to be around here long term, but he was fun. He made these wild comebacks, but why having to come back all the time?
Right.
They are worst in the league in giving up goals in the first 15 minutes of a game and worst in the league in giving up a goal in the last 15 minutes of the first half. So you're starting bad. You're ending the first half bad. You're in holes that you're constantly having to dig out of. If you weren't putting yourself in those positions, if you chose the right lineup or the right tactics to start the game instead of having to adjust and make changes and come back, who knows where this team would be? Probably not going to be hanging around beating all these other, top level teams, but I don't see a reason they couldn't have been fighting on decision day for that ninth spot or something like that. There was enough talent, like you mentioned, enough goals going in the net, just terrible on set pieces, terrible at the wrong times of the game. And it adds up, comes back to get you. It's crazy. They were still in it until like 2 weeks ago, which is
Yeah.
considering how freaking awful they've been.
Yeah, well, that's a state of the Western Conference. I mean, you've got your top Western Conference teams that are just, blowing it out of the water, but you've got those like 7 to 10, 7 to 11 that are all within a couple points because they are all doing the same thing. They can't beat the top teams, and they're all just handing points off to each other. And it's like, okay, well, may the best team win in the final run, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you said you had a couple. Maybe go 1C, and then we'll tie it all together if you've got one. If you've got one.
Oh gosh, I would say my 1C is probably that answer I just gave you about Zavagnin there in terms of
Yeah.
just starting games poorly, wrong tactics, wrong choices, and then I would say too at times he was adjusting really well, and he was talking about not being conservative, and then these last few games they've been kind of conservative. The teams they kind of quit right when suddenly it stopped mattering, but yeah, I think that's got to be my 1C is just sticking to the not being effective at the right times, not choosing the correct tactics to start a game. Why can't we get that lineup that comes back in the second half over and over and over again on the field to begin a game? He told us a story because we have a guy Santi Munoz. I don't know if you've seen him. He's kind of a 10-9 hybrid, but he's played a little on the wing and wide midfielder. They just wherever they can get him on the field. He's on loan from Santos Laguna in Liga MX. And there was this moment he came into a game. He was just really dynamic, and he's out there, and the two DPS, Manu Garcia and Dan Jovic, are out there. And Kerry Zvagnin's like, I'm trying to figure out a way to start these three together. And it never happened, which is kind of crazy. Like, what do you and I would the solution to me was go to a back three, stop playing your wingers that aren't being very effective. Maybe put one of your wingers at wingback, right? I mean, you still have three legit center backs, and then one of your two wingbacks is like used to playing some defense. Let Daniel Shalhoub be the other wingback. He's actually pretty responsible defensive for a winger, and then you could have Manu and Santi underneath Dayon. Ooh, that sounds exciting. Mason Toy was pretty fun when he started to get some games late in the year. How did Kerry not see that earlier in the year? Because he was such a different presence, fast, big, strong, physical, so different than everybody else. Play those guys around each other. You got two in the kind of dual attacking midfielders, or you switch it to you have two forwards with Manu underneath them, run a double pivot behind them with our energy guys. And the fact that he couldn't figure it out, it might be the reason he's not going to have this job in the future. We don't know that yet. They haven't said that yet, but I feel pretty strongly that he's probably not going to be the guy.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't think he's done anything again from an outsider's point of view that was like, oh my God, he has to get a job here, right? But
Yeah.
as we wrap this all up, I think the big question we want to finish with is of all the points that you've got and you've made and we've all made here, what is the biggest thing this team needs to fix going into 2026 to be successful?
Oh my gosh. I mean,
The
there's still
number
so much.
one.
So how do I pick one thing? Maybe I'm gonna say the coach really matters because they've already hired a CSO. This just happened yesterday. They got David Lee from NYCFC, took essentially like a lateral move, like which is kind of crazy. Take the same job at a less prestigious club. I have to think it's like City Football Group. You only have so much control versus you're going to probably have full control over at Sporting KC. 7-year contracts. They gave him a long guaranteed deal here. So yeah, a lot of money I'm sure is on the table. So I'm going to say you got to get the coach right because I think hopefully they've gotten the CSO right. We don't know. It's too early to judge. Like, but New York City FC, best record in the league over the last 5 years. If you add them all up, it's kind of wild. I would not have guessed that off the top, but they got a title in there. They're a pretty consistent team. So if that's done right, then if you get the coach right, that's going to make a world of difference. I can't help but look at teams like Vancouver or teams like Nashville, who essentially ran back the same rosters as last year, but they have new coaches, and what a difference it's made. Nashville's dropped a little bit here towards the end of the season, went on kind of a bad run, but Vancouver, they're right up there at the Shield, which is crazy. They were such a mediocre team, and they were missing Ryan Gauld all season. Like, the
All
guy has
season, yeah.
never played, and he's fantastic. So there's a lot of complaint. Well, I didn't have my DPS. Well, neither did Jesper Sorensen, and he's getting the job done in Vancouver. And they played in so many competitions. They're playing for the Canadian Championships. I don't know when this episode's going out, but that is so. If you get the coach right, and hopefully that CSO is right, that means between those guys, they're going to hopefully get the right players. We'll see. So I say coaching really matters. You got to coach them up. We got some young guys coming up that they're going to be signing to homegrown deals and whatnot. If you can coach them right, that can make a world difference. Like, half the roster is going to be gone, more than half the roster. 17 of the 25 players can be gone. That's crazy. There's
Yeah.
only 25 players. Why don't we have 30 players? There's so many roster spots unused. So
That's also very true. Rumor has it that David Lee left New York City because once Red Bull got knocked out of the playoffs, he knew that a juggernaut was coming back. Like, they were coming back full force. He's like, I don't want to have to deal with that. So he bounced. And if I say that enough
interesting.
times, I'm going to believe it and I'm going to feel better about myself. It's going to be great. But I like your point.
There's no
I think
no sour grapes in there that he was once a member of the Red Bull staff as well, and they let him get away.
no, because I think we've done that to a lot of our staff, and it's not necessarily on the person, it's on us. We've run quite a few people out the door. And I just want to put one more. Anytime anybody brings up the New York City MLS Cup, we have to make sure we call it the Mickey Mouse Cup because, I mean, what do they play? Philadelphia's third team, right? Like, I don't know if we
That was a
can.
weird game. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know if we can give them all that, but no, I think the coach is a huge point. Your points on Vancouver and Nashville are fantastic. That's such a good point. I didn't even think about it that way. So really good job. Dude, thanks so much for being here. That's just it's always such a fun time to chat with you. Even in these moments when the the conversation isn't that fun. But thanks so much again. Tell people where you are and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me over at kcsoccerjournal.com. I'm the associate editor over there. We put out content all the time. If you were like, I don't care for reading, you can listen to me host a podcast for the Glory KC, and you can follow that at for the Glory KC on basically any social media. If you're just like, I just want tweets, then that's at Play for 90 on Twitter, or if you prefer Blue Sky, at Chad C. Smith.
There you go. And make sure everybody goes and gives them a follow because it is really good SKC coverage. I love, when you got some of the bigger articles. I enjoy reading, so I like giving them a scroll every once in a while. Just keep up with my SKC news. So, Chad, thanks so much again for being here. Make sure if you are new here, you're following us as well because we are going through every team that missed the playoffs this year and doing the exact same thing. So give us a follow if you want to see all of that and more in 2026. But thanks so much again for listening, and we'll see you next time on the next episode of the Designated Players and MLS Podcast. See ya.